Good morning, Higher Hope. This is Monday, May 4th, and we've been meeting like this for a while, just giving you some thoughts that I have along this journey of the COVID virus. Just want to just kind of talk a little bit about what I shared yesterday in the message. We'll have another theme this week later, maybe starting tomorrow, or maybe we'll talk about this week. But I want to talk about this idea of how we come out of this. How does, as a church, how do we move from being online only and meeting on Zoom and caring for each other and outreach that way to the next season, which we're not really sure what it is, but we know it will loosen some. We'll have some freedom to meet, but probably not meet as a family. And so at first I want to talk a little bit about this, as I talked about yesterday, this game of chess. So just make sure we have clarity on that. We are the church. We are not a building. We're not a worship experience. We are a family. We are a body. We are connected. We do life together. We are on mission together. We grow as a family together. And so we're a lot more than this building that I'm sitting in right now, and we're a lot more than our Sunday morning worship service with the band, the worship team, and the message. We're a lot more than that. Those are good things, but those are not the only things. And so when we're playing chess, I like chess even though I'm not great at it. There are a lot of pieces on the board. You got the pawns, you got the knights, you got all these different pieces. But the biggest piece, one of the most important pieces, the pieces with the most move, is the queen. And so the queen becomes the one that most beginners rely on. It's because you can move it in so many different directions, and when they lose the queen, more than likely for beginners they're going to lose the game. And so what I've heard they do is if you want to become a better chess player, you take the queen off the board quick and learn to use the other pieces. And that's kind of where we are. Our Sunday morning gathering is very important, and it's critical for us to worship together and gather together. And we're looking forward to the day we can do that again. But that's not the only piece that we have, and the blessing or the good part of where we're at right now is that God may be pivoting us away from just seeing church on a Sunday morning, and because we answer the question, how was church? Church was good. The message was good. The worship was good. Hey, it was fun to get to meet some people. And we talk about church as a Sunday morning experience when it's really not that. It's a family. And so you don't talk about with your family like, oh, that was, how's your family? You don't say, well, that was a good dinner. You talk about how they're doing, and this what everyone is up to next, and what you're wrestling with, and what you're struggling. You talk about the family. You talk about together. And so our chessboard has the queen taken off. And maybe what we need to look at as a church in general across the U.S. and in Higher Hope is, as much as we love to meet together on a Sunday morning and worship with music and prayer and kind of have coffee and hang out together that way, what does the church look like now without the queen? Can it be a more beautiful thing or a different beautiful thing? Or maybe it can change our experience or our view of church a little bit because we have to be the church differently. And so as we're looking at where our culture is going and where our just out of this virus, how it may play out. May 15th seems like a day that has been set up to kind of like release restrictions some. I mean, maybe it'll be longer than that. But as a church, we're praying through. Okay, so what happens next? What happens on May 15th for our church? Because my feeling is we still won't be able to gather in our building for a while. And so what we want to do is still be the church. And one of the ways we can do that is through these. The Bible talks about the church in many different ways, and one of the words that it uses is oikos, or it's really a term that also kind of connotates households, like small gatherings of people. Like so, when it talks about the jailer that we've been talking about in Philippians, and how his household came to faith, it's talking about his family, his maybe even extended family. It's a group of 20 to 40 people that have come to be baptized as well. And so this term of oikos represented those family units, but also represented the church, that there were gatherings of not just large groups, but also of like 20 to 40 people, and they have these characteristics that I actually love. It says in Acts 2, they devoted themselves to the apostle teaching. They're like, I just, as a church, we want to be connected to the Word of God. They devoted themselves to the fellowship, to each other. They were committed to them. There was a loyalty. There was a like, I'm here for you kind of view as they walked through this kind of household of faith. And not only that, they continued to eat together, to connect around the table together. And this is celebrating the Lord's table, but it goes beyond that to like eating together. And I wish I had time. Maybe I will. Maybe tomorrow. And I've talked about it before. How relational eating together is, and I think if we could return that to the church, we can't do it with a church on a Sunday morning the way we're set up right now. But if we could do it in these small units, these households, these oikas, then maybe there's a beauty, there's a tightness, there's a development of relationship, there's a knowing and being known there. There's something of accountability and the strand of three strings being tied together. And so there is that part of the family, of the household of God. So this next season, what we want to do is we want to create that environment. It's not quite small groups. It's going to be a little different than that. It has it really has a mixture of our Sunday morning gathering and also of a small group, but it's also can reach out to people in your neighborhood. Like, who doesn't want to eat? Who doesn't want a relationship right now? And to invite them into that. It's also being able to pray together, and everyone is needing prayer. There's a lot of people who don't walk through the door of a church who are saying, "Can you pray for me?" And they may not pray out loud, but they need people who have their back and who will be interceding for them. So we want to create that environment. So it's an outreach. It's possibly could eventually be a mission too. Maybe you say, "Hey, we want to attack this together." So there's a lot of different pieces that can play out, and I don't know how exactly everything's gonna work. It's an experiment. It's a short term, maybe 3-month, 6-month experiment to see how it is. But what we want to do is we want to gather people at like outdoor barbecues at people's houses, sit around a campfire, hang out. So what we want them to watch the message on Sunday morning, and then get together Sunday afternoon or Sunday night, or maybe another day of the week, and just kind of have a barbecue together, hang out together, and then ask a couple simple questions together. And these are the 3 questions that we'll probably see asked in many different ways. One is, how are you really doing? I'm not saying, and I don't want the answer good. We have to ask this in a way that really gets to like, how are you feeling about life? How are you feeling about just what you're going through? How are you? How to really know you? And also in the midst of that, the second question is, what's God saying to you? What's God saying to you in the message? What's God saying to you in your quiet time? It doesn't matter where he's speaking as long as he's speaking. What is God saying to you? And then the third question that we've kind of talked about in the Sunday morning, what are you doing with it? How do you live that out? What is God asking you to do with what he is telling you? And so we want those 3 questions to drive wherever the meeting goes. There's no other agenda besides eating together, hang out together, and really push each other spiritually. And those 3 questions should do that. And so there's a lot of unknown. We're building the plane as we're flying it. And so there'll be some crash and fails. There'll be some like exciting movements of God. There'll be things that we learn along the way that we'll switch because of where we are in culture. But I want to challenge you to pray about this, to think about this. Don't picture church in just one aspect. Picture the church as a whole and try it and see if we can have a taste of what the church can be. And so tonight, Monday night at 7 p.m., we have a Zoom call, and I'm going to put it in the Facebook post, where you can join us and kind of ask questions, hear more about this. And I'm really excited about this because it can be a whole new way of God working in the midst of us. And so come, just hear it out. You don't have to be part of it yet. Just ask your questions. Bring the problems that you see. Bring your excitement. Bring like what would excite you about this. And let's see where God takes this in this season. Maybe this is the direction that God wants to head. And maybe it will last longer. Maybe it won't. But let's see. Let's prayerfully seek God and see what he has for us. And one of those things may be just gathering together over a meal and just hanging out together.